Oke, boleh langsung mulai ya. Ali itu di mute.
Oh iya, Cok. Gimana? Kenalan langsung apa langsung baca naskah nih? Kenalan dulu langsung baca naskah.
Langsung aja.
Ya. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished participation and fellow learning. Good morning and welcome to today academic seminar. It is both an honor and privilege for me to open this session, in which we will explore one of the most essential, complex, and continuously evolving concepts in political science, that of democracy. Today's discussion carries particular importance as we reflect on Indonesia democratic landscape through the lens of the material presented in our 12-slide presentation, which together provide not only fundamental definition and theories, but also a deeply relevant analysis of the current socio-political context that shaped our nation's democratic experience. We begin this academic journey. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the significance of what we are discussing. Democracy is not merely a system of or a form governance. It is an ongoing collective project that involves institution leaders, citizen ideas, and values. It is something that must be guarded, questioned, and refined continuously over the past 2 decades. Uh, Indonesia has often been described as one of the world's largest democracies, a title that, while impressive, also comes with extraordinary responsibility. It reminds us that democracy is never static. It grows, transforms, adapts, and sometimes even changes depending on how we as members of society respond to the challenge posed by our political environment. Today's presentation is structured in 12 slides. It's designed to shed light on a different dimension of democracy, beginning from the conceptual foundation that allow us to understand what democracy truly means, followed by a reflection on Indonesia current democratic conditions, major theoretical framework, and key challenges such as corruption, political dynasties, and digital misinformation. As we go further, this slide brings us into a closer examination of opportunities for democratic strengthening, both political activism and strategies that can potentially revitalize democratic institutions. And ultimately, they guide us toward a broader reflection on Indonesia's democratic future, how we might sustain and improve the system that we collectively rely on. Before diving into the material, I want to emphasize that today's seminar is not simply an academic exercise. It is a conversation that holds direct relevance to our everyday life, whatever we are aware of it or not. Democracy influences the opportunities we have, the freedom we enjoy, the information we consume, and the decisions that affect our communities. When democratic institutions are strong and trusted, society moves forward with confidence. But when institutions lose credibility, or when political process become clouded by uncertainty or distrust, the effect ripple throughout society. They influence the perspective of young people, the collective memory, and after the expectation that citizens hold for their governance. In this seminar, we are fortunate to have two presenters, Subhan and Rio, who will guide us through this content with depth and clarity. They have a prepared explanation that will not only elaborate on the material provided in the slide, but also connect these ideas to real world dynamics occurring in Indonesia today. Their narrative will help us see the link between theoretical principles and life experience, between academic framework and contemporary political realities. Later, we will also be joined by three insightful questioners, Ryan, Iqbal, and Wildan, who will help us further deepen our understanding by raising questions that challenge from and expand the ideas presented. Their participation will be a crucial part of our seminar because democracy itself is rooted in dialogue. The capacity to engage, question, critique, and reflect collectively. This Q&A session will allow us to test the strength of our argument and push the discussion to more nuanced level. As the moderator, my role is to guide the flow of our seminar, ensure that each section transitions smoothly and maintain the clarity and coherence of our academic dialogue. I hope that as we move through today's materials, each of us can approach the discussion with open mind uh, and a willingness to think critically about the issues raised. The health of democracy. A democracy depends not only on institutions and learn leaders, but also on the intellectual engagement of its citizens. By being here, listening, questioning, and reflection, you are already a participant in the strengthening of democratic culture. With that, I would like to officially begin our session. Let us now move to the first part of our material. I invite our first presentation, Subhan, to begin presenting the content of and our introduction to the issue at hand. Subhan, the floor is yours.
First, tes tes. Tes. Apakah kedengeran suaranya?
Aman, aman. Sip.
Okay.
In English.
Yes. Uh, First, let me introduce myself. My name is Muhammad Sultan. I'm from F class with last digits 147. Now, uh, uh, first, thank you very much to Ali for the warm introduction. And for framing our discussion so clearly. Seminar. Allow me to guide us slide one, which set on for the entire presentation, highlighting the central issue we are dealing with, the contemporary condition of democracy in Indonesia. Before we begin to discuss complex frameworks or theoretical interpretation, it is crucial to understand that basic like the broad picture of democracy currently looks like, function, and why it remains a topic that demands continuous discussion, scrutiny, and reflections. When we speak democracy in Indonesia, we're referring to a system that is both vast in scale and uh, intricate in its mix. Indonesia is often celebrated as one of the world's largest democracy country whose political trans.
Sorry, Mr. Tuhan, your voice is gone. Tuhan.
Has been recognized globally as a significant participating while democratic undeniable exists, still faces substructural and cultural prevent from functioning optimally.
Sorry, Mr. Subhan, your voice.
Sorry, Mr. Tuhan. Are you okay?
Are you okay, Mister?
Maybe for you, for the presenter too, you can uh,
Okay, continue. I will continue the slide. Next slide. As we proceed through this seminar, we must keep in mind that democracy is never a finished product. It is a continuous negotiation between ideals and realities. Slide 1 remind us that Indonesia democracy is not merely experiencing problems. It is experiencing problems that require thoughtful, informed, and collective response. These issues are not abstract. They manifest in everyday life, affecting how citizens interact with the state, uh, how they perceive leadership, and how they participate in political process. Now, as we transition in slide 2, next, it becomes essential to ground our discussion in clear definition without understanding the basic concept of democracy, rule of law, political participation, accountability, and civil liberties. We risk losing clarity when interpreting Indonesia's current condition. Slide 2 provides this fundamental concept, and I would like to elaborate on them in a way that help us to see how they apply to our life experience. Democracy, at its core, it's a system which political power comes from the people. It is not simple about voting. It is about giving citizens the ability to influence decisions that affect their life. Through election, public debate, participation in civil society, and other forms of engagement. People shape the laws, leadership, and the direction of their country. But direction is not only about having election. Many countries hold election without beginning democratic. What separates genuine democracy from mere electoralism is the presence of freedom, fairness, transparency, and accountability. A democratic election is not meaningful if people vote under pressure, or if candidates are not afforded equal opportunity, or if institutions administering the election back in the independence. This brings us to the rule of law. For democracy to function effectively, the rule of law must stand firm. The rule of law means that no individual, whether a president, judge, member of parliament, or an ordinary citizen, is above the law. It requires law to be applied consistently, fairly, and without discrimination. When the law is selectively applied, or when powerful individuals are shielded from the legal consequence, the public begins to lose trust, not only in the legal system, but also in democratic system itself. Rule of law is the invisible backbone holding democracy upright. Another important concept is a political participation. Democracy is weakened when citizens disengage or fail include. Participation does not only mean voting, although voting remains a central component. It also includes the willingness of citizens to attend public discussion, express their opinions, join organization, advocate for issues, or hold their leader accountable. A democracy where citizens are, it becomes a democracy in form, but not in substance. Accountability is similarly crucial. In healthy democracy, leaders do not govern about explanation. They must justify the decision, respond to criticism, and answer for mistakes. Institutions must be able to check each other's. When those in power can act without oversight, democracy becomes hollow. Accountability ensures that power remains a public trust, not a personal possession. Finally, civil liberties, such as freedom of speech, freedom of press, and freedom of peaceful assembly are the oxygen of democracy breathes. Without the freedom to speak, to question, to criticize, and to organize, citizens cannot meaningfully participate. When civil liberties are suppressed, even subtly, democracy may continue to function on the surface, but begin to suffocate underneath. Slide 2, therefore, is not a merely set of definitions. It is a reminder that democracy is a complex ecosystem. Its element participation, accountability, rule of law, civil liberties supports the others. If one weakens, the rest are affected. As we continue through the next slides, this foundation concept will serve as anchor to help us interpret the relation and challenge present in the later section. With that foundation set, we will slowly transition to slide 3. Next. Next, sorry. Uh, which explore Indonesia current democratic condition and theoretical framework that help us analyze them. But before that, I will pause briefly to allow us to take this initial concept. Thank you. Now, let us continue our discussion by moving in slide, which focus on the current condition of democracy in Indonesia within both national and global context. This slide allows us to shift our attention from pure conceptual understanding to a more grounded examination and how democracy in participating in democracy body. We are not referring to a single moment in time. We are referring to a long time evolving process shaped by historical shift, institutional development, economical change, global influence, and cultural dynamics that interact in ways that are often subtle but profoundly impactful. Indonesia is frequently categorized as flawed democracy, a term that may seem harsh at first glance, but one that actually reflects a nuanced evaluation. A flawed democracy is a not a failed democracy. It is a democracy that contains many democratic features, regular election, political pluralism, and active civil society, yet struggle with weaknesses in institutional performance, political accountability, or respect for civil liberties. Indonesia fits this category because, while its democratic framework remains intact, several indicators have shown signs of decline. Freedom of expression, for example, face increasing restriction in both formal and informal forms. Judicial independence, which is essential for maintaining checks and balance, has faced question and doubt in several high-profile cases. This development challenged the idea of democracy as a system rooted in fairness and impartiality. Economic and political corruption remains another significant issue that shapes public trust in institutions. Corruption does not simply represent financial loss. It undermines confidence in governments, distorts policy decisions, and creates barriers for democratic participation. When corruption permeates political process, citizens began to feel that democratic representation is no longer genuine. The perception that political actors operate based on the self-interest or ethical networks weaken the trust necessary for democratic stability. And trust, as we have seen throughout the history, is not just a moral virtue. It is an individual factor on which democratic life depends. Next. Furthermore, we cannot analyze Indonesia democratic condition without acknowledging the global force that influence it. Around the world, we see a rise in digital misinformation, polarization, and challenge to democratic norms. These global trends do not stop at any nation border. They flow through the internet, social media, global news cycles, and transnational political narrative. In Indonesia, misinformation has become a pervasive challenge that affects everything from public opinion to election outcomes. The speed which information spread today and the difficulty of distinguishing truth from manipulation create an environment where citizens may feel overwhelmed, confused. Democracy struggles when citizens are uncertain about what is true. Because democratic participation is require clarity, confidence, and trust. However, amidst this challenge, there are also signs of democratic vitality. Youth activism is one of such example. While polarization may be rising, so too is the political engagement of young Indonesians who are increasingly vocal, organized, and aware of the issue, shaping their future, whether through the traditional activism, digital movement, or community-based initiative. Young people are becoming a significant force in demanding transparency, accountability, and reform. This dual reality declining institutional performance, but rising civic engagement creates a dynamic and unpredictable landscape. It suggests that while democracy faces real threats, the desire for democratic participation remains strong, particularly among the younger generation, which present rhetorical frameworks that help us make sense of the complex of realities. Understanding democracy through cultural lens allow us to be beyond surface level symptoms and grasp the deeper structural dynamics at work. In this slide, we focus on three essential frameworks: democratic consolidation theory, principles of good governance, and the concept of policy. Democracy consolidation theory help us understanding what it means to be a democracy to become stable, durable, and deeply rooted in political culture. According to this perspective, democracy is consolidation when it becomes the only game in town, meaning that major political actors and citizens alike see democracy not merely as political requirement, but as the legitimate consequential framework for governance. In Indonesia case, formal democratic structure are well established, but cultural internalization remain uneven. We still see instances where political actors view position of power as extension of personal or familial networks, rather than as public trust. The presence of political dynasties, opportunistic alliance, or personalized leadership style in the case of democratic consolidation is ongoing rather than conflict. Design do not democracy is collapsing, but they do suggest that consolidation require further strengthening. The principle of good governance provides another useful framework. Good governance emphasizes transparency, accountability, participation, rule of law, efficiency, and responsiveness. These principles are interconnected, and when one is weakened, the other is affected. For example, without transparency, accountability becomes difficult. Without participation, governance loses legitimacy. Without rule of law, fairness collapses. When we apply these principles in Indonesia, we observe that some areas such as progress, such as increased public engagement through digital platform, while other struggles, such as judicial independence or institutional impartiality. Good governance serves as a reminder that democracy is not only about election, it is about how institutions operate on a daily basis. Finally, the whole concept of poliarchy offers a particularly valuable perspective. According to Robert Dahl, a polyarchy is characterized by two essential dimensions: participation and contestation. Participation refers to the broad involvement of citizens in political processes, while contestation refers to the genuine competition among political actors. A political system must allow citizens not only to vote, but to have meaningful choice. It must permit political opposition to exist freely, challenge incumbents, and offer alternatives in Indonesia. Participation remains high in terms of voter turnout and civic enthusiasm. However, contestation seems sometimes very constrained, especially when political dynasties or elite economy limit the range of candidates or reduce the competitiveness of election. Understanding polarity allows us to see how democratic system can appear passive on the surface, yet still lack the depth of competition that makes democracy truly robust. Together, these theoretical frameworks give us tools to interpret the realities described in slide 3. They help us recognize the democracy is not measured only by presence of institutions, but by the quality of interaction between citizens, leaders, and political structures. They remind us that democracy requires both stability and openness, both structure and contestation, both trust and accountability. As we conclude to this part, we now have a clear understanding of where Indonesia stands today and how political theory help us interpret the standing. With this foundation, we are ready to move in the next part of presentation when we will explore the challenge. Next. Thank you. Now let us proceed to slide 5, where we turn our attention towards this complex landscape and challenge of opportunities within Indonesian democracy. This part of the presentation is crucial because it helps us understand not only where the system is struggling, but also where potential for positive transformation exists. A democratic system can never be understood only through its strengths or only through its weakness. It must be seen through the interplay between the two. Challenge, if addressed properly, can become catalyst for reform. Opportunities, if nurtured, can become a driving of lasting democratic consolidation. Let us begin the discussion of the challenge. One of the most persistent obstacles to democratic development in Indonesia is corruption. Corruption is not limited to the high-profile cases that occasionally make headlines. It exists with the daily operation of many institutions, shaping how decisions are made, how resources are allocated, and how citizens interact with the state. Whether it manifests as briefly favoritism, nepotism, or the misuse of public funds, corruption undermines trust in government. Trust is essential in any democracy. Without trust, legitimacy erodes. And without legitimacy, democratic process some become vulnerable to manipulation and decay. When citizens believe that public servants act for personal gain rather than public interest, They began to disengage, and disengagement is one of the significant traits to democratic vitality. Another significant challenge lies in the expansion of political dynasties. While political family exists in many democratic systems around the world, their prevalence in Indonesia raises concern about fairness, equal opportunities, and genuine competition. The existence of dynasties suggests that political power is more on family networks than on merit of or public trust. These patterns narrow the field of political consistency and weakens the principle that leadership should be accountable to citizens rather than kinship structure when political office become more concentrated within a handful of families. Democratic con- contestation become performative rather than meaningful. Disinformation and online polarization also pose serious challenges. The rapid spread of inaccurate or misleading information on digital platforms creates confusion, foster mistrust, and deeper division among citizens. This problem is not unique to Indonesia. Many countries around the world are struggling with similar dynamics. However, the scale of Indonesia's population and the widespread use of social media amplify the effects. Misinformation is particularly dangerous during election periods, where false narrative can influence voter perception, shape political discourse, and even legitimate electoral outcomes. Moreover, polarization fueled by online conflict create an environment where dialogues become difficult and compromise become nearly impossible. Democracy thrives on discourse, on the negotiation. When the society become polarized into opposing groups that fail to listen each other, the democratic process breakdowns. Weak rule of law is another challenge that undermines the quality of democracy. When laws are applied inconsistently, or when those with political influence can escape accountability, the public lost true faith in the justice system. Judicial independence is a cornerstone of democratic structure. But when it's compromised, democratic institutions become tools of political rather than protectors of public interest. This problem becomes this problem became especially visible during politically sensitive moments, such as major election or legislative debates, where public perception of fairness are importantly is essential. Gender inequality in political representation remains an additional challenge. While effort has been made to increase women participation in politics, representation is still disproportionately low when half of the population remain underrepresented in decision-making process. Democratic outcomes become less inclusive and less reflective of society diverse perspective. Gender inequality is not simply a social issue. It is a democratic issue because democracy cannot be considered fully legitimate if it does not provide equal opportunity for participation. Even civil liberties, which form of the normative foundation of democracy, face periodic threats. Freedom of speech, freedom of press, and the freedom of peaceful assembly are essential for holding leaders accountable. expressing this dissent, and ensuring transparency when these freedoms are restricted, whether through legal measure, intimidation, or digital surveillance. Democracy lost its ability to protect citizen rights. Civil liberties act as the boundary that prevent power to become abusive. When this power becomes abusive, democratic resilience is put at risk. Now, having outlined the challenge, let's us turn to the opportunities highlighted in slide 9. Next, young people it is important to remember that despite these obstacles, Indonesia is not moving backward without resistance. On the contrary, there are powerful forces within the society pushing for greater transparency, accountability, and reform. These forces represent opportunities point of optimism that show democracy still has the capacity to grow and improve. One of the most encouraging developments is the rise of youth political awareness. Young people in Indonesia are increasingly political literate, socially engaged, and vocal about the issues that matter to them. Whether through demonstration, community initiative, digital campaigns, or creative expression, youth activism has become a vibrant part of the nation's democratic fabrics. Unlike previous generation, many young Indonesians have grown up with access to inform and global perspective, giving them new tool, challenge to status quo, and demand better governments. Their engagement represent a generational shift in Indonesia's democratic culture. One is that more critical, one more connected, and more willing to mobilize. Digital activism also play a transformative role. Although digital platforms contribute to misinformation, they also provide opportunities for people to organize, educate, mobilize, and advocate for cause they believe in. Civil society actors, independent journalists, and grassroots organizations now use digital tools to expose injustice, promote transparency, and amplify marginalized voice. This digital activism often creates pressure on political decisions to respond. Democracy can adapt and evolve in digital age. Furthermore, there is growing public demand for transparency. Citizens increasingly expect of government to be accountable, open, and responsible. This expectation creates an environment which political leaders must pay attention to issues such as corruption, institutional integrity, and public participation. Transparency is not only principle, it is social demand that pressure institutions to improve their performance. Legal electoral reform also represents the value of opportunities. Although slow and all attempts can reform and the strengthening electoral system, improving governance standards, and reducing corruption have the potential to significantly change democratic quality. This reform can equally restore trust, improve fairness, and ensure the democratic process more representative. With that, we will soon transition to the next section led by our second presenter, Subhan. But before that transition, I will hand the session to back briefly to the moderator Ali, so that he may introduce the next segment and prepare the audience for continuation of our discussion. So Ali, can you continue?
Okay, thank you very much, Rio, for such a comprehensive and thoughtful explanation of the presentation. Your analysis has given us a strong foundation to understand the complexities, contradictions, and possibilities within Indonesia democracy landscape. As we move further into the next portion of our seminar, we will begin exploring more specific events and contexts that shape contemporary democratic discourse in Indonesia. We will now shift into next slide onward, where our second presenter, Subhan, will guide us through deeper case studies, especially the events surrounding the 2024 Indonesia election and how this incident relate to broader patterns in democratic governance. Subhan will also explore youth political activism, institutional response, and the evolving role of society in holding democratic structures accountable. Then I now invite Subhan to take the floor and continue the presentation. Subhan, please proceed.
Uh, did my voice can hear, moderator?
Yeah, that's okay, Subhan.
Okay, so now we're going to the slide 7. First, thank you, Ali, for the transition. Uh, with that groundwork established, we now turn our attention to slide 7, which addresses what has become one of the most debated and consequential political events in recent Indonesia history, the 2024 election controversy. This slide is important not only because of the event itself, but because of what it reveals about the fragility and resilience of democratic institutions in Indonesia. To begin, the 2024 election controversy revolves around what many perceive as an abrupt and unexpected decision by the Constitutional Court, a decision that effectively enabled the president's sons to run for the vice presidency. Normally, legal and constitutional requirements for the candidacy are treated as a guards mean to prevent manipulation or opportunistic reinterpretation. Yet, in this instance, the ruling appeared initially sudden, and the judicial reasoning behind it became the subject of intense public debate. Critics argued that the decision jeopardized the perceived neutrality of the constitutional courts. Some even describe the ruling as an example of how legal mechanism can be influenced by political interest when institutional independence is not fully protected. This incident triggered widespread concern among civil society groups, scholars, activists, and ordinary citizens. Many questions what the ruling implied about the state of judicial independence in Indonesia. The Constitutional Court historically intended to act as a neutral guardian of constitutional integrity, now found itself accused of political partiality. Alongside, the General Election Commission or KPU also faced scrutiny about whether it could maintain impartiality amid unprecedented political pressure. These concerns were not merely academic, they reflect real anxieties about whether democratic institutions could withstand pressure from the powerful actors. However, the controversy did more than spark criticism. It also mobilized public engagement, civil society organizations, students group, and the independent observers held discussion, organized public statement, and circulate, analyze their thoughts, that clarify of implication of the court's decision. This wave of a civic response demonstrates that society is not passive in the face of democratic setback. On the contrary, it revealed that Indonesia citizens are increasingly willing to scrutinize institutions and hold them accountable. One aspect that magnified the impact of this controversy was the role of digital media as misinformation and conflicting narratives spread rapidly in across online platforms. The public found it increasingly difficult to distinguish between facts, interpretation, and engineered narrative. Social media became not just a space for public discourse, but also a battlefield where competing political interests attempt to sway opinion. Some information was designed to create a confusion or inflame emotion. Some attempt delegitimize institution or opponents. Others sought to present partisan interpretation as objects truth. The digital fragmentation add another layer of complexity to an already tense political moment, demonstrating how fragile democratic narrative can become in the era of the rapid information exchange. And as we move to the next part of slide 7, uh, if the slide is next. Uh, it becomes clear that the 2024 election controversy was not merely about a single judicial decision. It was a reflection of a broader patterns, like patterns related to institutional vulnerability, executive influence, and the ongoing struggle to the balance political power with democratic norms. The controversy highlight how democratic institutions can be legally uh, intact yet operationally compromised. It showed that democracy relies not only on laws and procedures, but also on norms, traditions, trust. Institutions lose legitimacy and political outcome become a contest not only in the ballot but in mind. Uh, Now transitioning to the slide 8 allows in this slide allows us to explore the wider consequence and implication of these events when happens after such a controversy. How does it shape public perception, civic engagement, and the future trajectory of democratic institutions? In this slide, invite us to consider this broader implication. One of the most important lessons we can draw is that democratic setback often create moment of reflection and recalibration. When controversies occur, citizens become more vigilant. They begin questioning what reforms are needed, what safeguards must be strengthened, and what cultural changes must take place within a political institution. And we also confront the idea that democratic erosion does not always occur dramatically. It often takes place through a gradual shift, rulings that subtly stretch legal boundaries, administrative decisions that appear technically valid but politically questionable, or political maneuvers that exploit ambiguities in the legal system. Such incremental changes can collectively erode institutional norms. But again, it's important to recognize that in the Indonesian context, citizens have not accepted this change silently. The controversy has sparked vibrant debates in the classroom, universities, community space, and social media, and even informal conversation that permeate everyday life. These debates matter that they keep a democratic culture alive by encouraging people to question power. Uh, in this slide also direct us to consider the role of institution in responding to such challenges. How does the judiciary rebuild trust? How do electoral bodies demonstrate impartiality? And how do political actors ensure that reforms are not merely symbolic but genuinely effective? This question highlights the need for institutional reform, reform that is grounded in transparency, accountability, and public participation. Without meaningful reform, democratic controversies risk becoming a recurring pattern in rather than isolated events. And now we're moving to slide, next slide. Uh, in this slide 9, emphasize how youth activism is emerging as a powerful force for democratic renewal. Young citizens are organizing discussion, initiating campaigns, engaging in demonstration, producing independence, political content, and using technology to challenge narrative imposed by powerful actors. Uh, they do not merely consume information, they create it, interpret it, and redistribute it. This active engagement transforms the digital landscape into a public sphere where democratic debate can drive. Youth activism also challenges traditional political structures, where other older political elites may prioritize stability or established networks. Young activities tend to prioritize transparency, equality, environmental justice, and human rights, and also digital freedom. Their political imagination is shaped not by old political division, but by new global challenges. This generational difference creates tension but also possibility. Democracy evolves when new generation challenge old assumption. Uh, Furthermore, youth-led movement often brings creativity into political engagement rather than relying on conventional forms of protest or advocacy. They incorporate art, humor, design, digital storytelling, and collaborative initiative. This method expands the reach of political message and makes democratic participation more accessible and appealing to the broader segment of society. The intersection between youth activism and democratic reform is one of the most hopeful dimensions of Indonesia's political future. While challenges such as corruption, dynastic power, and misinformation continues to strain our institution, the energy of young activists offer a counterbalance that helps sustain democratic culture. It is this interplay between institutional difficulty and civic engagement that ultimately shapes the future of democracy in Indonesia. Uh, Therefore, it's not just about youth activism, it's about the emergence of a new democratic ethos. This ethos is more participatory, more critical, more global, and more attuned to justice. If nurtured properly in this shift has the potential to transform political culture more deeply than any single reform or electoral outcome. Uh, and, uh, and now in the end, thank you. Now we arrive at the slide 12, the final slide of our presentation, which brings together all the ideas, reflection, and analyze we have explored throughout this session. Uh, uh, Concluding reflection and invitation to pause from the details and consider of what democracy means for Indonesia today and what responsibilities lie of whether as a voters, students, scholars, or a member society. At this point, after traveling through definition, theories, and current condition, controversy, challenges, and opportunities, we can begin political structure, but as a lived experience, one that evolves through the daily interaction between citizen and institution. Uh, this encourages us to see a democracy as something fragile, but that it reminds that democracy survival does not deploy of mechanism, but on the collective belief that the system worth preserving. This panel reflects on the idea that in Indonesia, in many ways, in a state of tension between progress and tension between innovation and that practice, between public performance, but tension is not necessarily destructive. In fact, it can be productive. Tension forces societies to confront contradiction, resist values, and pursue necessary reforms. It encourages critical thinking and often pathway for transformation. In this slide, also as to look toward the future, it urges imagine what Indonesia democratic landscape look like years from now. Will we have stronger institutions? Will the judiciary regain public trust, or will elections dynasty weaken civic awareness strengthen? Uh, this question cannot be answered with certainty, but the direction of our future will be to make today. If we want more resilient democracy, we must be fair. That means encourage independent journalism, demanding transparency from leaders, holding institutions accountable, and nurturing civic responsibility among younger generation. It means building political ecosystem where disagreement does not lead to a division, where criticism is welcome rather than the suppressed, and where power is exercised with humility. Humility, as we this final slide, the message comes clear: democracy is not but a continuous effort. It requires long-term commitment, collective participation, and constant uh, evaluation. It requires integrity, both institutional uh, and above all, it requires uh, to question the courage and the courage to believe that a better democratic future is always within reach. Uh, so that concludes my presentation. Thank you for engaging with these ideas, and thank you for your session. Uh, and the call to our moderator to guide us to the next part of our seminar. Now, I take to the moderator Ali.
Okay, thank you very much, Subhan, for guiding us through the final portion of the material, research clarity, and this. So we are reminded that democracy is not only something to be analyzed, but something to be lived and safeguarded. The reflection beautifully tie together the entire narrative from Fundanesia, Fundanesia national concept to the real world implication, from challenges to opportunities. and finally to the responsibilities that fall on each of us. We will move into one of the most important parts of our seminar, the question and answer session. This is where ideas are tested, clarified, expanded, and sometimes even challenged. In a democratic environment, open dialogue is essential, and our Q&A session represent that spirit. This is the moment where theory meets curiosity, where explanation meets reflection, and where we allow deeper layers of meaning to emerge. We have three dedicated questioners today: is Ryan, Iqbal, and Wildan. Each questioner will deliver two questions, and our presenter will respond accordingly. I invite everyone to listen carefully, reflect critically, and use this opportunity to deepen their understanding of the topics we have discussed without further delay. Let us begin our Q&A session. I would like to invite our first questioner, Ryan, to deliver his question. For Ryan, uh,
Okay, thank you, moderator. Um, my first question relates to the issues of institutional trust that were mentioned earlier, particularly regarding the 2020 and 24 election controversy. In your presentation, both Subahan and Rio highlight how public confidence in institutions like the Constitution Court and the Electoral Commission has been shaken. My question is, how exactly does the decline of institutional trust affect the day-to-day functions of democracy in Indonesia? And more specifically, what kinds of long-term consequences might arise if this erosion of trust continues with, without effective intervention? I want to understand not only the immediate impact, but also the broader implication for democratic culture, citizen participation, and politically legitimacy over time.
Thank you, Ryan, for the question. It addresses one of the most fundamental issues is democratic studies trust. Without trust, democratic institutions may still exist on paper, but their ability to function meaningfully become compromised. Declining institutional trust does not happen overnight. It accumulates through a series of events, controversies, unaddressed grievance, and perceived injustice. When citizens begin to feel that courts may not judge fairly, that electoral bodies may influence by political actors, or that public officials are operating without accountability, they gradually shift from believing in democracy as a shared system to seeing it as a performance, one where outcomes might be already predetermined in day-to-day democratic functioning. This erosion manifests subtly at first. Citizens become more skeptical about participating in public consultation, more doubtful about electoral promise, and more likely to disengage from political process. Voting may still occur, but voters participate with a sense of resignation rather than empowerment. Civil discourse become more cynical. Trust among citizens weakens, and political conversation turn increasingly toward suspicion rather than constructive dialogue. If institutional trust continues to decline unchecked, the long-term consequences can be severe. First, the political legitimacy weakens. Legitimacy is not something that comes automatically from holding office. It comes from citizens believing that the office were earned fairly. When trust erodes, even legally elected leaders may face questionings about their moral authority to govern. Second, democratic deteriorate to power, how they talk to one another, and how they make collective decisions, and how they resolve disagreement when people no longer trust in institutions. They also lost trust in process of deliberation and compromise. Society became polarized and fragmented. People begin looking for alternative sources of authority, charismatic figures, strongmen, or informal networks, because they no longer see formal institutions as reliable. Third, and perhaps most dangerously, the erosion of trust can create opening for authoritarian tendencies when citizens see democracy as dysfunctional. They may become more respectful to the leaders who promise efficiency over participation, stability over accountability, or simplicity over democratic complexity. History shows that declining trust is often the first step towards democratic backsliding. That's why institutional trust cannot be taken lightly. It is not merely a psychological sentiment. It is a structural necessity for democratic survival. Restoring trust requires genuine reforms, transparency, accountability, and effort from both government and civil society. Without such intervention, the consequence may not be only weaken Indonesia democracy today, but also undermine the democratic future generation.
Okay, thank you for the explanation. And for my second question, I want to shift to the topic of youth activism that was discussed earlier. We heard that young people are becoming more politically aware and more vocal. My question is this: do you believe that youth activism alone is strong enough to counteract the entrenched issues within Indonesia's democracy, such as political dynasties, corruption, and declining civil liberties? Or, put differently, is youth activism a transformative force, or does it rise being symbolic without real structural impact?
Okay. Uh, Thank you for the question. Actually, that is an excellent question, Ryan, and one that goes to the heart of democratic transformation. Your activism has become one of the most dynamic and visible force in Indonesia politics in the last decade. Young people are more informed, more connected, and more critical, and more willing to speak up compared to the previous. The political imagination is shaped by the global ideas, access to the digital platforms, and activism alone is strong enough to overcome entrenched democratic problems. Complex that youth activism uh, undoubtedly transformative. It introduces a new voice, a new narrative, and new demands into public discourse. Young people have played a catalytic roles in democratic movements from the Reformasi in 1998 to the contemporary digital campaigns, youth activism challenges all political status quo. It rejects corruption, questions dynasty, and demands accountability, and it revitalizes democratic energy. However, youth activism on its own cannot fully dismantle entrenched political systems. Dynasty, corruption, and institutional declines are not simply social issues. They are structural problems embedded in the legal framework, economic networks, and bureaucratic cultures, and long-standing political alliance. Structural problems require structural solutions, legal reforms, institutional strengthen, and changes within political parties. Your activism can push for the changes, but it cannot enact them alone. It requires a collaboration with a civil society, reform, independent media, and institutional actors. Uh, the activism movement that are highly visible online but struggle to sustain long-term impact. Their challenge for youth activism is not only to create a momentum, but to convert a momentum into the durable influence that requires organization, consistency, negotiation skills, and with political systems strategically rather than only emotionally. Yet, the transformative potential of youth what youth activism does better than any other force is shift political culture. It reshapes what society considers acceptable or unacceptable. It brings public expectations, and when public expect action change, institutions eventually must adapt. So to answer activism alone is not enough, but your activism indispensable. Without that, democracy stagnates. Democracy stagnates. Within democracy has the energy to move forward. The key is ensuring that this energy is channeled into the sustained participation, not just episodic protest.
Okay, thank you Ryan for your thoughtful question, and thank you for our presenters to such deep and reflective response. We will now move to our second questioner, Iqbal from Iqbal. The floor is
Okay, thank you, moderator. And my first question is the issue of political dynasty that appeared several times through the session. We often hear criticality about how political dynasty weaken democracy competition. But at the same time, some argue that dynasty exists simply because the public continues voting for them. So my question is, how should we understand the rise of political dynasty in Indonesia from a democracy perspective? Are they purely from democracy decline, or are they a reflection of voter preference? And importantly, what long-term impact might politicality dynasty have on Indonesia democracy, institution, and political culture? Thank you.
Uh, Thank you. Iqbal, your question most sensitive debate in Indonesian democracy. So, political dynasty often appear at the intersection between democracy. On one hand, proponents of dynasties argue that as long elections are held, uh, reflects democracy in action. They claim that dynasty emerged because the public trust these families, perhaps primary name recognition or perceived competence from this perspective. Dynasties are not imposed; they are chosen. However, this surface argument ignores deeper structural reality. Dynasties often drive not because they are inherently superior, but because they begin the political competition with the extraordinary advantage. They have access to a political network, financial resource, established name recognition, and long-standing connection within a bureaucratic and party systems. Opportunity for candidates, but the dynasty still playing the field when competing against dynasty's members, independent or new candidates face the the advantage that go beyond the merits. They face a structural imbalance are problematic not because they exist, but because they restrict political contestation. Contestation, one of the core elements of democracy, as emphasized in Dawes' concept of polyarchy. Democracy requires not full competition. When the same families repeatedly dominate a political position, competition becomes weakens. Elections become predictable. Political difference and innovation policy can be declined. And most importantly, leadership becomes uh, insulated from accountability because dynasties often operate within a closed circle of influence. Over time, as the dynasties grow stronger, they may begin to shape institutions for young leaders from entering politics, knowing that the system favors a small elite. This results in a democracy that appears active, but it's fundamentally limited. And the long-term effect is when citizens repeatedly see the same families in the power, they may begin to internalize the idea that political leadership is inherent rather than earned. This normalized inequality within democratic institutions. It reduces the sense of agency among ordinary citizens, and gradually, democracy becomes associated not with the opportunity but with permanent hierarchies. hierarchies. However, dynasties are not impossible to challenge when civic aware uh, a strong institution, empowered civil society, and voters who understand the long term of dynastic politics. So, to summarize, uh, dynasties are not merely a reflection of a voter preference. They are symptoms of a structural imbalance. Their rise is both a democratic outcome and a democratic warning. and their long-term impact, if not addressed, can reduce competitive, weakens accountability, and erode the democratic culture Indonesia strives to build.
Okay, thank you for explanation. For my second question, I want to explore the topic of disinformation. We talked earlier about how misinformation spread quickly and influence public's opinion during electoral. My question is what makes digital misinformation so powerful in Indonesia, especially, and how does it shape political among citizens? Additionally, what shape should be taken both society and institution to make the influence of misinformation in the long run?
That's an excellent question, Iqbal, and it touched one of the most urgent challenges facing modern democracies. Not just Indonesia, but countries around the world. Digital misinformation is powerful partly because of the technology itself, and partly because of social conditions that make people vulnerable to distort narrative. In Indonesia, the influence of misinformation is implied by several unique factors. First, Indonesia digital landscape is enormous. We are one of the large social media markets in the world. Millions of people use platforms like WhatsApp, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook daily, not just for communication, but as primary source of news. This creates an environment where information spreads faster than traditional media can verify it. The speed and volume of content make it difficult for citizens to distinguish between fact and manipulation. Second, digital misinformation often travel through the social networks that carry emotional and cultural trust. For example, family group chats, religious communities next borrow circles and own group. One misinformative, a powerful advantage over verified news. Third, political misinformation often appeal to emotion. It uses fear, anger, nationalism, or identify to provoke strong reaction. Emotional context is more memorable, more shareable, and more persuasive than neutral information. When political narratives are framed in emotional terms, citizens begin to adopt position based on sentiment rather than analysis. Fourth, and political literacy remains uneven across Indonesia. Many citizens lack the tools to critically evaluate information sources. Within these tools, misinformation become persuasive not because it will construct, but because it fills gaps in understanding. As a result, misinformation shapes political perception in profound ways. It can distort public opinion, polarize communities, delegitimize electoral process, and create division between groups. Political actors may also exploit misinformation to attack opponents, influence voters, or manipulate the narrative around controversies. Over time, misinformation erodes trust, not only in the media or political discourse, but in the idea of truth itself. When people no longer know what to believe, democratic discourse become weaker. Ultimately, misinformation thrives where trust is weak. The stronger democratic institution become, the more resilient society is against manipulation. The battle against misinformation is not really about correcting falsehood. It is about rebuilding the political and social environment that allows truth to matter. I will give back you to Ali.
Thank you, Iqbal, for your insightful question, and thank you for the presenter for the true and thoughtful response. We will now move to our final questioner for today's session for Wildan.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, moderator. My first question is connected to the topic of civil liberties and press freedom, which were mentioned earlier as key elements of democratic quality. In the presentation, it was noted that Indonesia has recently experienced a decline in freedom of expression and increasing pressure on independent journalism. My question is how do restriction on civil liberties, uh, especially freedom of speech and press freedom, impact the long-term health of democracy in Indonesia, and further, what kind of democratic care might of these restriction continue to intensive over time?
Question, Wildan. This is a very important question. Civil liberties, especially of and freedom of peaceful assembly, are among the most fundamental pillars of any functioning democracy. When these freedoms the between civil liberties and democratic health is so intertwined that it is almost impossible to discard the two. The long-term sequence of declining civil liberties can be severe. First, democratic backsliding becomes more likely. Backsliding does not always occur in a dramatic way. Often, it quietly through increasing uh, enforcement and subtle intimidation. Civil liberties shrink gradually, often justified as a measure to maintain stability, protect public order, or ensure national security. Every restriction creates a precedent, and these precedents accumulate into a political culture where repression. So restriction on civil liberties represent more than a short-term setback. They are early warning signs, symptoms of deeper democratic vulnerability. Of such a restriction continue without accountability, Indonesia risks entering a cycle where institutional decline, public distrust, and civic dissent on protecting civil liberties is therefore not optional. It is essential for preserving the how
Okay, thank you for the answer. For my second question, I want to look at the bigger picture, considering everything we have discussed today, from democratic challenge to citizen participation. My question is, what are the most important cultural changes that Indonesia needs in order to truly strengthen its democracy? I'm not referring only to laws or institutional reforms, but deeper cultural shift that must happen among citizens, leaders, and society as a whole. Without this cultural change, can democracy continually consolidate?
Yes. That is proven questionable, and one that strikes at the heart of democratic stability, laws, institution, and political system. It's a mindset, a habit, a collective agreement about how power should be exercised and how society should respond to justice. Without control argument, even well-designed institutions can fail. Finally, Indonesia needs a cultural shift toward empathy. Democracy requires more than a voting. It requires understanding on one another's experience, recognizing the diversity of our society, and sustaining the willingness to build compromise even when disagreed. Without empathy, democracy becomes reduced to competition without cooperation. With empathy, it becomes collective pursuit of justice. These cultural changes are not easy. They require time, education, dialogue, and generational effort. But without them, democracy remains fragile, sustained by procedure but weakened by culture. With them, democracy becomes resilient, capable of growth, adaptation, and meaningful transformation.
Thank you very much, Wildan, for those insightful questions, and thank you to both of our presenters for such a rich and thoughtful response. This concludes our three questionnaire Q&A session. We have explored deep issues from institutional trust to civil liberties, misinformation, and democratic culture. Each question has allowed us to deepen the reflection and broaden our understanding of Indonesia's democratic challenge and opportunities. And finally, this distinguished participant, presenter, and questioner, we have now reached to the end of the today's seminar. Uh, Today's seminar has highlighted the importance of continual vigilance. Democratic erosion does not happen suddenly. It happens slowly through small compromise, quiet change, and examined decision and gradual shift in norms. Uh, as we bring this session to a close, I would like to thank everyone here for your attention, your engagement, and your willingness to reflect critically on these important issues. I hope that what we have discussed today will not simply stay within this room or within the confines of the seminar, but will influence the way we think, the way we participate, and the way we view our responsibilities as member of a democratic society. With that, I officially close our seminar. Thank you, and may we continue carrying forward the spirit of democracy in our thoughts, our conversation, and our action. For all, thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi
Eh,
wabarakatuh.
aku cek dulu ya bisa dapat telepon. Sebentar.
Ya, coba.